This is Gateway City Sports.
It's a trap!
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
This is the Team of Rivals podcast.
Everything you want to hear from the big sports to the big screen.
He's all by himself, fires into the end zone. Caught! Touchdown! No!
Vaughn into the windup in his first offering. Just a bit outside. He tried the corner and missed.
He doesn't like you. I don't like you either.
Time winding down, Michael for three. Yes! She is gone!
I can't believe what I just saw.
Go crazy, folks! Go crazy! You believe in miracles? Yes!
You may fire when ready.
What?
Good evening, Cubs and Cardinals fans, and welcome to the Team of Rivals podcast. It's Thursday, August 10th, and we're going to get into it a little bit later, but I got to tell you, and I think that Elliot's with me on this, 2023 season's giving me a little bit of the 2015 vibes. I don't want to jinx it. Probably already have, because after I said that to Elliot, Cubs lost 2 out of 3 to the Mets. Fucking Mets. Didn't lose 2 out of 3 to the Mets. They lost 2 out of 3 to Pete Alonso. Anyway, follow us on social media, Team of Rivals Pod, or find us online at teamofrivalspodcast.com. For those of you who prefer to watch the show, we also post to YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble. So hit the like and subscribe buttons and be sure the notifications are on so that you know anytime we post new content. You can find more great podcast and blog content on the Gateway City Sports Network, where we are proud members. Joining me this week, co-founder of TOR, number 125 in the 2022 edition of C70's Top Cards on Twitter, Ron Nuttall, and permanent occasional guest host. Occasionally, he's permanently here, Elliot Dewey. Ron, you're wearing a Cardinals jersey. You must be feeling good about Matthew LIberatore in his vengeance start against the Rays tonight.
That's right. You know what? It's redemption. The trade was absolutely worth it. It was finally, 8 complete innings, a shutout. Trade's even, man.
It's all done, right? We stopped measuring now.
You can close the book on it, man. It might even be a steal at this point.
Ron, it seems to me that Cardinals fans are doing their best to console themselves with whatever they can around not just this year's trade deadline, but past trade deadlines, so that they don't have to pay attention to the shit show that is actually happening at the bottom of the NL Central. Am I wrong?
Well, I think most have arrived at that a long time ago. Arrived at the thought. Seeing it play out is a new thing for most, those that have never been there before and admit it. Well, if you're like a really hardcore sports fan, you have teams in other sports, other leagues, you kind of get it, right? Like we're Bears fans. We don't follow as close as baseball, obviously, but you kind of know what that feeling's like to, be in November and be like, well, shit, this isn't even worth watching anymore. And I paid for the whole goddamn NFL Sunday ticket. Right, so now I've got to let it ride out for a couple months and throw my money away. Hockey fans experience this too. If you're a Blackhawks fan, if you're a Blues fan this year, so I mean, people that follow multiple sports, it's a new thing to us, to the baseball side of it, but it's a familiar feeling. And look, I think a lot of people have mentally prepared for it a long time. It's still frustrating to watch. Those that love baseball and it's August and school hasn't quite started yet, you're used to watching it on your free time. To watch meaningless games on your free time is a little bit different than watching games when you're actually in contention and the games are a little bit more exciting. So, yeah, they're taking out their frustrations out there on X. Still a stupid name for that, but they're
it's still Twitter.
Buy a brand for $44 billion, then you change it. Whatever.
Well, he's He's been sitting on
Siri
that
didn't like it.
X.com website for how long? I mean, that was the name of one of his original companies,
SpaceX and everything else, right? I mean, so he's trying to bring it all together. It'll be Tesla X.
Didn't he name his kid X?
Well, does he have an X?
Yeah,
Plenty.
he's got that too.
Homage to her.
Yes.
Anyway, to answer your question, very long way. Yeah, they're taking it out on Twitter. It's kind of funny to watch. Some of the usual suspects continue to melt down. How long can your meltdown possibly last? Kind of over mine. I'll throw the jersey on tonight to show it. Like, really doesn't bother me all that much, right? We can talk about, trade deadline, what they got back, and what their plans are. I know we've talked about it a couple times. Now we've had some time to let all that sink in. I'm sure we'll get to that here in a little bit. But I'm not going to say I told you guys so. But I told you, this collection of characters could surprise you, and it will be fun to watch. We're in August.
Ron, say it, please. You know that I would if the shoe was on the other foot.
Oh, you
say
absolutely would. But
so
no,
say it.
I was right.
Say it.
I was right.
Oh, there it is.
How much more high-pitched do I have to get? Yeah, it's absolutely right. I wouldn't have bet my money on it, but I said, this could be fun for you guys. And still surprising after it's come and went. Stroman's still wearing a jersey. Bellinger, all these other guys that kind of acquired for, you would assume, a 4-month career as a Cub. They're still hanging around. And they're what? Are they 2.5 back now?
Yeah, they're 2.5. They're tied with tied with the Reds, 2.5 back of the Brewers, and a half game out of the wild card.
Still, let me ask you. Still, what's it like saying tied with the Reds? 2.5 games. Yeah, it is odd.
Well, I mean, tied with the Reds in second place. That's what's weird, right? Tied with the Reds. That's the sign of a bad season.
Sure, right. Good point. Yeah. Tied with the Reds may not be all that uncommon. Tied with the Reds in second place is like, what the fuck is happening?
Unless you're the Pirates, in which case tied with the Reds is progress.
Very true.
Regardless of the place. Elliot, Ron mentioned it being surprising. What's been the most surprising? Look, I'm not going to say what's been the most. You don't get to choose. I'm going to give you two choices. What's been the most surprising development for you so far this Cubs season? Is it the summer of Mike Tauchman, or is it that Cody Bellinger is back to being an MVP? I can't believe I'm saying it, because never in my wildest dreams did I think that we were going to get this Cody Bellinger.
Both. I mean, honestly, both. Hoping to get a league average season out of Cody Bellinger with some great center field play. The summer of Mike Tauchman just kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, he had a ride with the Yankees. He had a ride with the San Francisco Giants, I believe. Mm-hmm. They signed him. They invited him to spring training camp and signed him to a minor league deal.
And then assigned him to AAA. He didn't even make the team out of spring training.
And then Cody Bellinger gets hurt. He sees more playing time. And this is making the most of it, and if he continues to play like this for the rest of the season, he's gonna get himself a contract next season with somebody, if not the Cubs.
Yeah, no, you're right. He'll make a great fourth outfielder for some team. So
I guess weighing my excitement, I think the summer of Mike Tauchman is the most surprising thing out of this whole thing. So, and it's just, I'm going to ride the wave for as long as it happens.
Are you getting the shirt?
So, I pre-ordered the shirt.
What shirt? What shirt? What shirt?
The Summer of Tauchman shirt by Obvious Shirts.
Yep.
Because Chicago, that website, CHGO, they've been for weeks saying, where were you in the summer of Mike Tauchman? And so they're doing a collab with Obvious Shirts for a Summer of Tauchman t-shirt.
And it's actually kind of funny because, so I'm in that Discord, the CHGO Discord for the Cubs. And those Cody Demendo, who is the one who kind of coined the term the Summer of Mike Tauchman, got shout outs from Cub post game. Cubs Twitter posted about it. I think they've even been talking about it on 670 The Score. So yeah, it in the Discord he said, "Hey guys, Obvious Shirts reached out to me. We're gonna have a Summer of Mike Talkman collab here pretty soon, and then he posted it in the Discord, so I got on it as soon as he posted it, because I think he posted it to us before it hit Twitter, and so I went on, was able to get a pre-order shirt in. So
did you get one for Ron, or is that the one that you ordered was for Ron?
Oh, of course.
Summer of Talkman.
You know, Ron, the Mike Talkman story, if he was somebody that the Cubs had drafted, and if he had an even weirder name, I would say that the Cardinals Devil Magic had moved up I-55, but that's not what you guys do. You guys don't sign somebody off the scrap heap, and
they used to.
He suddenly blows up and torments the Cubs all season long. Usually it's somebody that has come out of nowhere in your minor league system that nobody but like Kyle Reese knows about. And he's
Lars
got
Nootbaar.
Lars Nootbaar and Stubby Clapp. And I mean, seriously, I think half of Mo's draft and sign strategy is to find the weirdest names available and just sign them up, because everybody else is just scared away by them.
I don't know. You can point to I don't know. I mean, you can point to a lot of examples around the league of strange guys you didn't really see coming out of nowhere. And when you say sign off the scrap heap, the Cardinals actually used to be at one point in time pretty good at that, right? And it would typically be a pitcher or somebody that was kind of maybe signed a bad contract and somebody just wanted to dump them off, and they'd come to St. Louis, and Dave Duncan's the one that had the magic there. Like he could resurrect a lot of pitchers. He had a good history of that, and they really haven't had that since, right? I'm not saying the pitching coaches have been terrible. I mean, we had Mike Maddox here for a few years, and he's I think widely respected. I don't know about this new guy they've got. He's always looking into an iPad or something, so I'm not really sure what he's doing. Maybe it's the new way. But they were known for that. I mean, they would, as far as drafting, I mean, there's some strange guys that they've had come along, but you can look anywhere and kind of see that. So I don't know.
So I know that I said it in our chat and introduced the thought in the monologue, but I really am getting 2015 vibes out of this team. It reminds me a lot. We talked about it before. 2015 wasn't supposed to be the year that we were expecting anybody to arrive, and we weren't expecting the Cubs to make noise, and they did. And if you look at the waiver wire or at the transaction wire, and I actually did before the show, I pulled it up and I've got it here. The Cubs didn't do much in 2015 as far as trades. They got Fernando Rodney.
But they had already done that work in previous years, Pete. I mean,
I know. Well, yeah. But what I'm saying is, right, and that's kind of what they did this year, right? The only they really only made two moves. They got Jose Cuas and they got Jamer Candelario, and that's it. Mm-hmm. That's all they did this year. But if you look at their 2015 transactions, it's the same thing. They picked up Fernando Rodney, and then they got Dan Herron and Tommy Hunter from the Orioles.
I forgot about Dan Herron being a Cub.
Right?
Yeah, I
that's
totally forgot
all
about
that they did that
short period. Yeah.
And they end up making noise and making it to the playoffs. And it was in 2016, obviously, that everything came together.
I think big diff. This is why it doesn't give me the 2015 vibes. This is why. I saw this from the Cubs in 2014. I'd say a lot of Cardinal fans didn't. I did. I thought, this team is actually going to be pretty good. Of who they have up here now, and at the time, I think they had Baez up. He played for them in 2014. A lot of holes in his swing.
I think he just had a cup of coffee.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. But I think it was one of the series at the end of the year. I think when the Cubs saw him, I'm like, man, this team looks pretty good. And then they go out and get Madden and Lester. And I don't think in 2015 they did.
2015.
So, but the difference is the Cubs had already done their sell off years before. Finished at the bottom end of the league the early part of the decade, drafted high. You knew these guys were coming. The differences in 2015, these are mostly our homegrown guys with a few additions from the outside. And you knew in 2015, like, shit, these are young cost control players. They're going to be around a while. And that was more frightening as an opposing team, because you're like, we might have to deal with this for a while, right? And these guys are pretty good. No, we didn't expect them to arrive quite this early, but we suspected they might at some point in time in the back half of the 2010s, and here they are. This team this year lands on me a little bit different. Maybe it's the same feeling because they're kind of coming out of nowhere here. But this is like a window right now here with a few of the players that you have, right? Are you going to have them next year, or they're going to keep them? So this one just feels a little different. This wasn't this what I guess in 2015. Long way of me saying we knew it was going to be coming when Theo announced this in what was it 2011, 2012, somewhere around there. And so you knew it was coming. This one you didn't really know was coming. So this one's actually a little bit more surprising, but also it feels a little more temporary. Maybe it doesn't to you guys because you know your team better than I do. But when you know Stroman, Bellinger, those types of names, you're like, well, okay, these might not be permanent fixtures. I just don't know enough about some of the other guys here that you guys have obviously better knowledge of, but it just feels a little bit different in that sense. I didn't expect them.
I feel like it's a combination of both, of that 2015 vibe, but also, I mean, the Cubs have what now that Fangraphs or whoever have redone their minor league, you know, who's got it. You know, I think they had the Cubs ranked at 3.
Yeah, there was just.
I have no idea what just happened. You guys still there? Oh, man. I don't even know if we're alive at this point right now, but everything just went dead. Interesting. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Everything literally just went dead for me, and it's back up now, but that was really, really, really odd. I can't hear you guys yet. I have no idea if we're still streaming or not, or if that stopped. I guess it's back on. Okay. You guys keep going, and I'll figure out how I get the sound back through my side here, but hopefully it's rendezvous chat message received. Okay, let's see what that's all about. Sorry about that, folks. I'm not.
Can you hear us?
Oh, now I can. Yes, your sound is back.
Oh, hey, there we go. Okay. Only 6 seconds.
Really weird, man.
So everything as you were.
All 3 screens of mine went dead, and I'm like, well, here we go again. We'll have to cut the live show off short, but it looks like we are back on. I'm going to turn the sound on my phone because I just pulled up the Facebook feed to actually see if this was working.
The Twitter feed's actually working, so I just put it in my ears. So
okay, cool.
Everybody's coming through fine.
They might have only heard me freaking out for about a minute, but that's fine. We'll pick it we'll pick it back up. So wow, that was strange. You know, normally I would have just said fuck it and turned everything off, texted you guys and said I'm done. This didn't work. We'll finish it on Zoom or something and hopefully snag the audio that way. But I don't know.
You must be feeling really good about that LIberatore start then if you didn't just chuck it. Because normally you're right. That would have been your reaction.
Yeah, it might have been. It definitely would have been like, 7 years ago. I would have just had a meltdown. But whatever, you know. Proceed. Right, I don't even know what we were talking about.
2015 vibes, Elliot. You said it's a combination of both.
Yes, I feel like it's a combination of both. I feel like because of the rankings of the minor league system and the pieces that are in place down there that have been performed, and the guys that have performed this year that are there with Dansby and Cody Bellinger, and as of late, Jameson Taillon, you know. So there's been a lot of really cool pieces. You know, you can include Talkman in that, and you know, Stroh. So I mean, yes, we don't know what's going to happen next year, but I feel like the pieces are in place to be brought up to make an impact and possibly replace some of those guys, depending on what happens over the course of the offseason. So,
yeah, I'm with you. I think what I mean when I say 2015 vibes is that once again, it feels like this team has arrived a year early. I was not expecting, Ron, we talked about this, right? You're the one who said that you guys are going to be surprised by what happens. This is going to be a fun team for you. I was thinking that this was going to be one last year of, all right, we gotta suffer through and, you know, we'll see what's what at the end of the year. We'll see where we stand. I didn't necessarily think that we were going to sell, but I didn't think that we were going to be at this point where it looked like there was a good shot of them actually making it to the playoffs. Or if it was a sell-off, it was going to be a mild one. I really didn't expect them to buy. I feel like they're a year early, and it's exactly for a lot of the reasons that Elliot said. I think that there will be some pieces that are on this team who will be here next year, and there are some really exciting pieces that are, that like Pete Crow Armstrong. Everybody is starting to get familiar with that name. There's no surprise when Cubs fans talk about him, and the expectation that he's probably going to be on the team, if not in September, next year. But there are a lot of quick risers who are coming up through the system. And in probably the biggest surprise of all is that a lot of them are pitchers. So I think that there's a lot of optimism for Cubs fans. And it's funny because, Ron, you had said, we don't know that Cody Bellinger, for example, is going to be there next year. He's not going to, I love the idea. Cody Bellinger's not going to sign an extension, right? He's not going to sign anything before free agency this offseason. But I wouldn't rule out the possibility of him ending up in Chicago. I think that both sides have enjoyed the relationship, and I could see the Cubs not wanting to take a chance, when they're right on the verge of actually making some noise and putting a rookie center fielder in when you don't know how he's going to react to major league pitching. And if you think that you have a legitimate shot at making the playoffs, why not go with the known quantity? Cody Bellinger looks healthy and back to the Cody Bellinger that he used to be. So,
well, he's enjoyed his time there, and they're competitive, and they make it in, and even if they make it through a round, or deep into a round and it's competitive, you never know how the guy might feel. Obviously, he's improving his marketability at this point. So, if Chicago likes him enough and he's liked his time there and he fits in the picture, gosh, he's young enough. You forget how young he still is. You would think that the guy's like 30, 31, but he's not. It would be a good get. It's a 1-year contract. We thought we were going to flip him for something mid-year, and we ended up keeping him around. I don't think it'd be a bad deal. So, let me ask you guys this. By the way, I think it's I'd put it at probably a 60% chance he probably is back in Chicago next year with a better deal for him and them. Let me ask you guys this though. Even with the team and how it's playing right now, 2.5 games isn't a lot at this point in August. That can flip really fast. And so I'd say that barring a complete bottom out, I think they'll probably be in it up until the last week of the season. If they get there, though, obviously roads go through Atlanta and LA still. We've been saying this for like 4 years in a row, I feel like, right? What do you think the chances are? That's a tough one. That's a gauntlet to go through. You got to assume you're going to go through both. You're going to have to. Yep. But what is the likelihood? Really, you could ask any team out of the National League Central. They're still likely to be one. Like it's whoever takes the division at this point.
Right. Honestly, based on what we saw last week, they took 2 out of 3 from Atlanta, but that's a 3-game series, and all 3 of those were at home. Do I really think that they can win a 7-game series against the Braves? I think it's highly unlikely.
Tough, yeah.
I think they'll give them a good series. They're not going to. I don't think they'll get swept. Mm-hmm. But the stars would have to align for them, the way that it did. I told you guys, and you saw. I took the boy to the Saturday game against the Braves.
Did you buy him that John Jay game used bat that you took a picture of?
Did not.
No?
Did not.
Okay.
That lineup is rough. Like there's no letting up in that lineup for a pitcher. Just all the way down to like.
Are you talking about the Cubs lineup?
No, I'm talking about the Braves.
Oh yeah, I know. It is.
Oh my God! Like I didn't put it together until I was sitting there. Even watching the highlights and everything on Friday night. It wasn't until I was actually sitting there in the stadium watching the game, and I was like, "Oh my God!" There's
no breathing room.
No,
they can, and they can score quick.
They can, and they've got a lot of speed on that team. They got a lot of speed on that team, and I guarantee you, every pitcher that's gone through there has been like, "God damn, I wish the DH wasn't in the National League right now, right? Because I need that."
I know. I kept looking up at the video board, and it's like 27 home runs, 34 home runs, 36 home runs. What are you talking?
50 stolen bases, 30 stolen bases, 40 stolen bases. Yeah, it's crazy.
The Cubs leading the Cubs leading home run hitter, I think, has 17 or 18, and Nico has, I think it's 25 stolen bases. It's just Yeah, the Braves are ridiculous.
They are ridiculous, and the funny thing is, I know Atlanta's like a launching pad, right? Ball can fly out of there, but they've got a lineup. I almost don't care where they're playing. They could be playing in Seattle all of their home games. I'm saying they're going to have as many home runs, man. But you talk about the doubles and triples, they're going to pile up there with the speed they have on that team. So I don't think it has anything to do with that ballpark. They're just very talented, right? It's got to be, it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch them. I get them locally on down here, and every once in a while I probably know as much about the Braves as I did the Cubs when I lived in the area, just because they end up being so close. And there's a lot of Braves fans, obviously, in the area. So. Braves fans aren't like Cardinals fans to you, and they aren't like Cubs fans to me. They're just not very obnoxious to opposing fans, even local fans. But I do live in basketball and football country around here, so it's the passion level obviously is a little bit different.
Yeah. Elliot, who's scared? I know the answer to this. Who scares you more, the Braves or the Dodgers? I mean,
Braves.
Yeah, the Dodgers. I'm not all that intimidated by the Dodgers this year. No, they're going to win the division.
You feel like you got a chance against them. They
can be beat. Yeah.
They don't feel invulnerable. Like you look at even the Braves staff. I would put them up against Atlanta. At the it's been several years now. I'd say they probably are arguably got the toughest pitching if you just go 1 through 5. There's just not a lot of soft spots in that whole Braves roster. So I agree with you guys, man. I'd say bring on the Dodgers before I have to go through the Braves.
Yep, it's funny. I was I think it was the Marquee after show one of the other nights, and they were talking about the Braves and how the Cubs did well against them, but how stacked that Braves lineup was. And they said, and you look at it, and this is a team that's going to be together. Like you look at those top 4 or 5 guys on that team, they're going to be together for the next 5 years. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember that feeling when we thought that was going to happen. So. If there are any Braves fans listening or watching this podcast, don't get cocky, kid.
Well, you know what? I don't think they do, Pete. If you think about their dynasty they had, their dynasty that wasn't really a dynasty when you think about it, right? They won
one World Series,
all of those teams, all of those division titles. And I know 94 was a little bit of they may have gotten arguably robbed a little bit. That year got cut short, although Montreal was in first place at that point. But it was the shortened year after they got that World Series title. Up until when did they win? 2021?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. But that's not the same Braves team that we watched in the 90s and in the early 2000s, right? That was I don't think they will get too cocky, man. Again, I think the heat down here is all around basketball and football. There certainly are diehard baseball fans first, but there's just not as many of them as there are in our region. So I don't think you'll see that from them. I just don't get that vibe, and I live pretty close. I live pretty nearby too, so it's a different story. They're probably the team that's had the most success over the last 3 decades that we've known. That are still probably you'd put them in the bottom of the league at least obnoxious fan base.
Well, and the crazy thing is they're kind of a lot like Cubs fans, where they're all over the United States because of TNT. Yeah. Braves used to play on TNT constantly, and so a lot of friends that I had in college were Braves fans because they either lived in that weird zone between Iowa and Illinois and St. Louis, and really because they weren't real close to many of them, but they could either watch the Cubs on WGN or they could watch the Braves on TNT. Yeah. So they were kind of one or the other at that point.
I mean, the most games I watched on TV throughout the 90s until I moved away was definitely Atlanta and Chicago. They were on every single game, and you had to wait until special day when you got to watch the Cardinals. And a lot of teams were like that, right, around the country. Like, you just didn't get to watch them unless they played one of those teams, unless it was game of the week,
Fox Saturday baseball,
ESPN, like Sunday night baseball, or the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Yeah, those were the days.
Speaking of watching the Cubs, Ron, I don't know if you caught this. I mean, I know Elliot did. Of course he did. Marquee, essentially showing the way of the future. Marquee launched their direct-to-consumer streaming on their app. I signed up on launch day.
Uh-oh. Pete's back. Wait, stop. Stop. Pete is back. He signed up on launch day for you've been jaded, rough around the edges, cynical about companies, streaming services, all kinds of shit for a while.
No.
You were used to be the
services,
you were the
Disney
early
Plus specifically. I was on the cutting edge because did you hear their earnings call yesterday?
I've heard about it.
385,000 subscribers in the last quarter.
It doesn't surprise me because of the
it doesn't really.
Rates.
Yeah, and they increased the rate. So it is now almost 100% higher than it was on launch for Disney.
Yeah, because it was what, $6 a month when it first launched?
It was 8, and now it's gone up to what, 12? Yeah. Or no. Yeah, it was 8 and now it's gone up to 16, right?
Ooh, I don't know. I don't know if it's gone up 50. No, I don't think it's gone up that much.
I don't no, their combo with ESPN and Hulu.
Well, regardless, point is
went up to 16.
Yes, I'm jaded about Disney, but I've been waiting for this direct to consumer launch for Marquee, and it's been great, man.
All right.
I can and what is wonderful about it is it's a true streaming product, so I can turn the game on, and if I missed something, I can rewind it.
Ooh.
It's not just live streaming. I can go back and I can see what I missed. It's nice. It's really, really, really nice to be able to watch the Cubbies.
Yeah.
No blackout restrictions.
Oh, see, that's every baseball market stream right there, and
specifically for in-market Cubs fans. The Marquee app is specifically
so if I couldn't subscribe out here and get it?
No, you would just do MLB.TV.
MLB.TV.
Unless MLB.TV, you'd still be able to watch it. But I mean, if you were a Cubs fan in North Carolina and you were only interested in the Cubs, I mean, you could use a VPN.
You could
just spoof your location to in market, and then you'd be able to watch.
I don't know if they've done it yet or not because I've just my subscription to that renews every year, so I don't know if you can. I thought that they were introducing packages that were more for the team you wanted, at a lower rate. Now the rate's not that much different, right? So you might as well get.
I
the full
don't
thing.
think MLB
Have they done it
has
yet?
launched that yet.
Okay, maybe it's just been talked about.
I think they talked about it this year. That looking at it for maybe.
Well, I think all of the deal. I think the whole Bally Sports thing that was on many of the regional sports networks. I think the problems with those maybe have delayed that a little bit. But
I'm sure.
This is just the start of it, though, Pete. I think a lot of it's going to end up that way. There'll be a out of market package probably through Major League Baseball, and I do believe that once it starts and you get the big markets being able to stream locally there and just kind of cut the middleman out, I think we'll see more and more of this. It'll be league wide before you know it.
You know, MLB is watching this launch closely.
Sure, yeah.
So I'm glad to help boost those numbers, and in November, maybe October, I'll cancel my subscription, and then I'll pick it back up again in March.
Early adopter Pete is back.
I did the same thing because I was out, and I get my IPTV stuff here at the house. I don't do it on my phone, so I subscribed to Marquee so I could watch the game on my phone. So, and it worked flawlessly, which I was super surprised. That was my big worry, was that it wasn't going to work.
Yeah, that they weren't going to be ready,
great,
right? Yeah,
and it was great quality.
Yeah, high quality, no lags. I mean, there's a little bit of a lag. There's a 2 or 3 second lag, which kind of sucks because my phone gives me an alert, an Apple TV alert that something happened in the game, and it's like, oh yeah, Talkman's about to
hit
a home run.
Is sometimes when I would talk to my son back home, and they've just got. I think they do a streaming service there too, but you'd think, right, being right there in the region, right there in the market. When I'm on the phone with him, sometimes I'll react if the game happens to be on. He's like, "Oh, you're ahead of me." So in some cases, like MLB.TV is actually ahead of the local broadcast, which is where they're getting it least in Illinois.
That's true, because on my IPTV, I go to the MLB section and watch the game there rather than tuning into the actual Marquee channel.
Mm-hmm.
So Marquee gets it from MLB. So if you go directly to the MLB channel,
there you go.
It's literally, it's like 5 seconds faster.
So I think I told you this, Ron, when we first launched. I had that experience watching the Cubs in the playoffs because I was, I was only watching the games basically when they were streaming, whether it was on TBS or on Fox or whatever. And so obviously when they were in the playoffs, I was able to stream all of the games. But there was a bar, if you remember, there was a little dive bar across the street from where I used to live.
Yeah. I think we went over
during the playoffs. They're watching it on cable or on satellite or whatever it was. And so, the weather was great and I had the windows open and I would hear the reaction of what was going on. And I didn't know exactly what was going on, but you'd hear the boos or the cheers or whatever about 2 seconds before it would happen on my TV. And it completely gave away what was happening.
I think I'll correct myself. I think I went over to that bar just waiting for you to get home.
Oh, did you?
I think that's what happened that time. I crashed at your place when I was waiting for you to get home. So I hung out in that bar for, I don't know, not very long. Long enough.
Well, there are more bars now in that area. So
okay,
you'd have much more of an opportunity to entertain yourself, including a microbrew or a craft brewery that's opening soon.
Dude, you guys you'll never find me in a bar past like 7 p.m. at this point in my life. Like ever.
Unless you're out for dinner.
Not even then, man. I'm home. I eat with the white-haired people at that time anymore. Yeah.
So before we jump over to the trade deadline, just one thing, and I had mentioned this to Elliot, and I didn't want him to forget about it. I got excited a couple of weeks ago. Elliot, I'm sure you saw it. The speculation of who Shohei Ohtani might be most interested in landing with, and 3 specific cities had been mentioned: Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York.
Where did St. Louis fall on that list?
Yeah,
so I want to tell all the X fans out there.
It was the weirdest thing.
Huh.
And then the Mets sell off, and then you're thinking, well, he's not going to go to the Mets, right? This is a team that has told their exiting ace, I couldn't believe that. We're not shooting to rebuild for 24, maybe 25 or 26.
Right.
That guaranteed that he was going to waive his no trade clause, right?
Oh, 100%.
You can't see Ohtani signing up for that. So maybe the Yankees, I don't know. But so I started to get excited about it. But then Elliot, what I got worried about, the Cubs don't exactly have the best track record with Japanese players, right? Kosuke Fukudome, Yoshiwada, what Seiya Suzuki has done so far. I mean, he hasn't been terrible, but he hasn't been what we were expecting. I almost don't want the Cubs to sign Shohei Ohtani because I don't want them to break him. And my fear is that he's going to land in Chicago and it's all going to fall apart.
Well,
no.
I only remember the Cubs signing one,
so.
what you would consider marquee free agent that worked. And I'd still, at that point in time in 2015, I'd still throw Lester as one of the marquee names in the league. Who?
Wrong.
Who?
Andre Dawson. You can't argue with that. That totally worked.
I don't argue that was a great signing for them. Okay, fine. I'll give you that one too. So fine, there's 2.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? With all the
Alfonso
Soriano type shit that they had done over the years. No. Like Lester was the one that actually paid off. I wouldn't hang that on the Cubs that they ruined Japanese players or any free agent for that matter. It's just a matter of luck. I mean, how many guys the batting average for big name free agents that actually work?
That's the difference.
Yeah, he's proved himself, but he hasn't played for the Cubs.
Guys, big time free agents that signed 10-year deals for mega $1 million. Yeah, they've all proved themselves. How many of those? What's the batting average on those deals actually living up to their value? It's like got to be under 100, right? If it was a batting average.
And Ron, you said Exhibit A. It's Alfonso Soriano for the Cubs. It is a terrible deal.
That was a terrible deal.
I know that there are Cubs fans who will argue to the moon that it actually worked out well for the Cubs. There is no convincing me. That was a bad deal.
How bad did they want to get rid of him like the last 3 years, 4 years? Yeah, in the worst way. So, but you look around the league, the Cubs aren't alone. So that's why I don't think it's a Cubs thing.
I know. I'm just afraid that, you have the opportunity to sign the unicorn, right? Arguably, I can't believe we're saying
but I don't want to see him stay
so many years in. Arguably the greatest baseball player that has ever played.
I'd say
just think a couple of years ago we were talking about Mike Trout and there was no argument about it.
Yeah.
But for the Cubs to have him, and then it's watching Suzuki struggle. He had a great game last night, but watching Suzuki struggle, watching what happened to Fukudome after that first hot couple months out of the gate, I'm worried.
It's funny that you still see. I bet if you walk into Wrigley on any given day, you still see a couple Fukudome jerseys walking around. Fuck you, do me shirts. Yeah. No, I don't think it's a Cubs thing, guys. But it is going to be that is going to be an maybe the most interesting thing. It will be. What I mean, it will be the most.
That'll
interesting
be the story of the offseason.
It'll be the story of the offseason. It's got to be.
And especially after the trade deadline and the Angels going 0-6. I don't know if they kept losing or if they actually won a game after going 0-6.
I think they're last I saw, I think they were 2-7. I think it was.
Okay. Well, that probably still puts them at 8 games out.
Is there anything more Angels than that happening by deciding to not sell, to not trade him? Is there anything more Angels than that?
Where you could have gotten
like an entire AAA team
return and probably would have jumped your minor league team up to in the top 10 by what you could have received.
Is there anything more Angels than that? And I don't think there
Absolutely
is.
not.
Yeah. And I would say that's not even an organization that gets just struck by dumb luck or bad luck. It's just
they do it to themselves.
They've done it forever. How do you have the 2 best players on the planet for this long and do not give them enough around them to actually do anything about it? That's incredible.
Like the smartest thing you could do is pull what Cohen did out in New York and just spend the money for the best players.
Yeah, but that didn't work in New York.
Players.
It didn't work out.
When you have the 2 best players on the planet, come on.
Well, and for a while, guys, I know that like Pujols' best years didn't necessarily overlap Fukudome coming in and Mike Trout. Like it was all kind of the timing was a little bit off. You think about even all the way back when Pujols signed, like that was I think that was Trout's rookie year. They went and got Josh Hamilton the year after that, and they had who was the good pitcher from Texas at the time, C.J. Wilson. Like they threw some money around. Plus they had some big time young players, and they just couldn't make anything. They couldn't even make playoff appearances happen during this period of time, guys. Is there any franchise that's fucked it up this badly for this long? And I'd be hard pressed to find one that's actually
if you're looking at it as a ratio to the existing talent that they already have that they're trying to build around. I can't think of one.
I can't think of one either at all. Anyway,
and, Elliot, you mentioned Cohen in New York, and I think the lesson that's going to come out of that, or that should come out of that, is not that an obscenely rich owner is going to inflate the he will is going to destroy the market, right, and buy everybody. It's that an insanely rich owner can afford to pay his way out of his mistakes. And that's what most teams can't do, right? You screw up with a free agent and you have a bad contract, or you find that your moves didn't work, you're stuck.
You're stuck for
years. You're going to suck for a while.
Yep.
And, I understand that they're saying 25 or 26 before they're going to be competitive. Most other teams with those kinds of contracts, if it's not working out, it's a decade that team is destroyed because they're going to continue to be bad, but they're going to be hamstrung with free agents. And if they don't hit right on their minor league, their minor league system, they're going to be stuck. I mean, that's what happens.
And it makes you wonder, when is that going to hit the Padres too? Right. Like, how long can they sustain? I don't know what is the most underachieving team this year. You can certainly look at the Mets and say, man, you look at the Cardinals, you can look at the Mets, but you got to look at the Padres too and be like, Jesus Christ, really? How did it bottom out this badly?
I don't think the Cardinals
they've been floundering around. And actually, for the record, the team that tanked the worst that should have been good is the Chicago White Sox. Agreed?
Yeah, I agree with that.
That place. What a shit show.
Yeah.
Oh,
and I think what you're going to say, Pete, is some of us expected in the National League Central, St. Louis would still have a chance at that one. But yeah, I think where you're going, like overall expectation, get far in the playoffs, actually have a chance to win the World Series. Yeah, I wouldn't put St. Louis in that category.
Well, but even that, just expectations going into the season, right, based on their offseason moves, or let's say over the last year, right? Because it's not like the Padres made huge moves in the offseason, but over the last year, they made a lot of big moves to solidify that team.
Yeah.
I think those two teams are in a class by themselves. I'd put the White Sox actually on par with the Cardinals as far as the level of disappointment based on the expectation.
Yeah, I think that's fair too. Like within their divisions, you thought, well, they'll be fine.
Yeah.
They'll be the class to the division.
They'll be fine. They'll be bounced the first round. Maybe they'll get through the first round, but they're not. They're not
each other.
What's that?
I said at least the Cardinals kept it together and didn't turn on each other like the White Sox did.
Well, did you see the petty little move that the White Sox did last night against the Yankees?
No, I missed.
So Keenan Middleton, who's the guy who broke bad when he got to New York, right? He's the one who said there's no leadership. These guys are lazy. Eloy Jimenez has no work ethic. Yasmani Grandal is, a prima donna.
No
all this
friend
stuff.
to the pitchers.
Yeah, he's no friend to his pitchers. These guys don't prep for games. There's a rookie who fell asleep during a game. He came in relief of the game last night at Comiskey.
Mm-hmm.
The White Sox didn't put his name on the board.
No, they didn't.
So when they showed the defensive alignment, they had everybody else who was out there for the Yankees, and there was just a blank spot at the pitcher's mount. Up on the sideboards, where it just says the pitcher and the hitter and the count and everything. It was whoever was up, and then just a blank.
Well,
wow.
I'm sure he lost a ton of sleep over that. Like, I'm sure he's
I know. But I mean, being in Chicago and having to hear from White Sox fans chirping about, how their organization is better and stuff, real classy, real. And then obviously, Tim Anderson, apparently going unorthodox and deciding that even though he's right-handed, he's going to box southpaw and then just getting his ass laid out.
That was pretty pathetic. Yeah.
That was embarrassing.
Yeah. That was embarrassing. That's his Robin Ventura moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other story that came out is right before the All-Star break. Yasmani Grandal was trying to leave early since he wasn't in the starting lineup of the game before the All-Star break. And Tim Anderson said, well, if he wants to fucking leave early, I'll buy him his fucking plane ticket. And then Yasmani Grandal came up and smacked the shit out of Tim Anderson.
That's when you know it's all coming together, Pepper.
Yep. That team is getting ripped down to pieces. They're gonna get sold off in the offseason.
Yeah,
I hope so.
Yep.
It needs to be.
Yep. All right, trade deadline.
Yeah, it's come and gone. Yeah.
How you feeling now that you've got 10 days to reflect on it? First sell-off in decades.
Mm-hmm. First sell-off.
How you feeling about these?
First sell-off since the Cardinals shipped Willie McGee off to Oakland for Felix Jose back in 1990. That's the closest thing we've gotten to it. They eventually flipped Felix Jose for Greg Jeffries, who had a nice year and a half with St. Louis. But anyway, nobody wants to hear about that. How do I think about this? This was one task that they needed to do. The rest of the work has to be done in the offseason. They did acquire a pretty good handful of pitchers for who they sold off. So let's go down the list. Jordan Hicks was one of the first ones to go. Jordan Montgomery. I almost said Randall Grichuk, but I said Paul DeYoung because it was Blue Jays thing. It got me screwed up for a second. Paul DeYoung, and then Jack Flaherty, of course, was the other big name that they dealt. Said it was all about pitching, but there were some position players that were kind of smattered in there. I'm sure that those were things that were added on to make those deals happen. Cardinals fans need to think about this way. Are every one of those guys like a prospect that could show up in 24? Most of them are projected to be 25, 26. So no, it's not about 24. So a lot of Cardinals fans stop right there and God damn it, they didn't do anything for 2024. They didn't do anything to get themselves ready. They're dead for 24. Well, part of the reason of stockpiling some of these things is so you might be able to make a move or two in the offseason. It's not about necessarily keeping everybody, but it's having enough pieces in your minor league system that have some upside or some promise that you might be able to swing another deal in the offseason. So it doesn't stop here. So I don't know that they could have done much better. Some out there argue they should have gotten more for Jack Flaherty or more for Jordan Hicks or more for Jordan Montgomery. But for a 2-month rental on a pitcher that's not, you wouldn't call any of these guys top shelf starter. They're not right now. So you're not going to be able to deal to a team that's needing pitching. You're not going to get good pitching back that's promising for 2024 from a team who needs it. So you weren't going to get that to begin with. They probably did the best they could have done, but their work's not done. We'll see how they spin these guys either in the offseason, maybe hold on to a few of them that have promise. But, I mean, they needed to restock a bit at the AAA and AA level, and they've done that. They don't know what they've got in these guys other than their own scouting reports and other scouting reports on them. So a couple of these guys have already been promoted to the next level. They'll see how they perform at those levels. You might see, I don't think you'll see any of them this year in a September call-up, but you might see a few of them arrive in spring training next year if they're not already dealt for another piece or two that they need in terms of putting together that pitching staff. So I think they did about as well as they could, Pete. I'm not really sure what Cardinals fans expected. I guess they expected a blue chip prospect back for Jordan Montgomery or Jack Flaherty. They're never going to get that to begin with. They were going to get exactly what they got. Maybe a top 10 prospect somewhere in the system for each of those guys, and that ended up being about what it was, right? Top 20 prospect in some cases. So I'm not disappointed. At least they've made those moves that they needed to make. I thought there would be a couple more people gone, but I really thought Dylan Carlson was probably on his way out. He hasn't found consistent playing time even after the deadline. Tyler O'Neill came off the IL, but then he was hurt again, scratched for 2 days with knee tightness. That fucking guy just cannot stay in the lineup,
Maybe he ought to stay out of the weight room. And he might be
a lot of people think that, man. And the problem is the conditions have to be perfect for that player, and we know baseball's not perfect. And so, just keeping
he's got Kyle Farnsworth syndrome.
I don't think they'll. I would suspect I don't see those two with St. Louis next year. I think they'll try to do something with them this offseason. Their value wasn't at a place where they needed it to be by the time the deadline hit this year to get anything for them. So they're going to let him. They're going to let, especially Tyler O'Neill. He's going to be in left field as many days as possible for the remainder of the year, and they'll see what they can do with him in the offseason. I just don't really see either of those two guys in the 2024 plan.
They should be able to get like a 1 or a 2 for Tyler O'Neill, right?
Oh, yeah, sure. 1 or 2 starters.
I mean, a team that needs Tyler O'Neill to finish out their World Series plan.
Well,
they don't need a 1 or a 2 starter.
If you can get him for one healthy season, like in what would be his final year of control, he's still young enough. If you can get him for one healthy season, he will produce like he did in 2021 if he can stay healthy, which he was a good player.
When he had one healthy season.
One healthy season. You look at the rest of them, man, he's barely broken 50, 60 games every other year, So like I was done with him a long time ago, but they couldn't get anything for him. So I get it while he's still there. I'd say the same probably with Carlson, but the work isn't done. So I'm going to give them an incomplete grade at this point.
Elliot, how did you feel about the Cardinals trade deadline?
He's going to keep himself on mute because he doesn't care.
He is. That's right. He
Keep trying.
Figure out how to take.
No, normally I just got to press the space bar, and for some reason it wasn't working. No, I felt great about the Cardinals trade deadline because I felt like they didn't do shit. I felt like their returns weren't really anything.
Well, they weren't anything newsworthy or ground shaking, but I never expected them to be. They weren't going to be. So yeah.
I gotta say, and I know Ron, you say not to.
Honestly, I expected more. I expected more of a sell-off than what they did. Honestly,
if there's anything I'm disappointed in, I expected to see a couple more names off the roster too, and I didn't. So in that regard, I kind of agree, but not too surprised.
Yeah, I was expecting to see a lot more packaging of players, but obviously none of the teams that were buying saw any packages that the Cardinals could put together that would fill multiple needs.
Yeah.
But also there weren't a lot of very active buyers. Like, this was kind of a shitty trade deadline.
Well, a lot of them needed pitching, right? And there's only so much pitching the Cardinals had to begin with. Other names that they would have wanted included would have been names like Jordan Walker, Mason Wynn, and you're not going to touch those right now. So the Cardinals could have done something, but they're just not going to do that. So
I'm more towards Elliot than I am towards Ron in that I enjoyed the Cardinals trade deadline, especially as I was paying attention to Cardinal social media, because it felt like there was a lot of justifying things, right? Like getting excited about prospects who were 2 or 3 years off. And this prospect service has them rated so-and-so in their system. And they slotted in at number 5 in our system like that. Okay. It either says a lot about the prospect or it doesn't say much about your system. So yeah, that felt good.
The Cardinals definitely had a pitching gap in their organization they missed on a generation of pitchers, right? And I'm talking baseball generation, which for pitching, that's not a long window. That's not a very big window. It's a short one. So they missed on, let's say like Dakota Hudson. Like he was supposed to be in that class of like a Flaherty or maybe even Michael Wacha when he came up. And Dakota Hudson was just never that, right? So they've missed on guys like that. And then they went heavy on position players for a few years because the Cardinals typically didn't do that, right? So they gambled on, they went after guys like Nolan Walker. Holy crap, I'm making hybrids. Nolan Gorman and Jordan Walker. They kind of went after players like that for a couple of years rather than going for the pitching because they felt they had the pitching, but they missed on those pitchers. So now you got this kind of imbalance where St. Louis for a long time would go after pitching in the draft, and that's why they were so strong for years. And they always seem to have a crop of pitchers like either fill the bullpen or fill the rotation, and they just haven't. So yeah, they've created their own problem. But the real failure is actually 3 years, starting up to 3 years ago when they were failing to address this pitching. I think that's where the failure started, and it's just come to a head this year. But I don't know. I rate it as incomplete. It was unexciting, but I kind of expected it to be, so it didn't crush my expectations. But you're talking about Cardinals fans, Twitter Cardinals, formerly known as Twitter Cardinals fans, who will just get their hopes astronomically high and put their expectations up for any prospect name, and they go crazy over it. And I think I've just kind of learned, maybe it's just my age, I don't get overly excited about these guys. It's such a different game up here. Right? It's like Mason Wynn might come up this year. Hey, look, he's having a great stint in AAA. He's got all the tools you would want for that shortstop, and he looks like he could be the shortstop of the future. But difference between me and some Cardinals fans is like he might be a good role player for St. Louis. He might bat 7, 8, 9, carry a pretty steady glove, steal a few bases, provide a little bit of pop every so often. Problem with some Cardinals fans is they think this is Manny Machado, or they think this is Alex Rodriguez. That's who they want it to be, and when it falls short of that, then there you go. Then you get the social media Cardinals fans, right? Their expectations are not. They need to recalibrate that. They just can't. Because they're idiots.
And he could totally come up and just be overwhelmed by major league pitching. We've seen that happen.
Happen every year.
These AAA superstars who get called up and then fail to produce on the offensive side of the ball.
Or the guys, and this happens with the Cubs all the time. The guys who come up and they have that outstanding rookie year, and you're like, oh, we've got our center fielder of the future, Jerome Walton. and then the league figures him out.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then we've got our center fielder of the future, Corey Patterson.
Yeah.
And the league figures him out, and they don't adjust
St.
that.
Louis Cardinals World Series champion 2011, Corey Patterson.
That's right.
Let me correct you on that one.
Sometimes it takes a few years.
I think he may have pinch run that series.
I was going to say he was clearly
he wasn't a part of it. But yeah, we see it all the time, and you know those guys that come up and have a couple good months within the league. Hey, this is Major League Baseball, man. A lot of tools and stuff out there. People are watching everybody, and when the league adjusts to you, the guys that can't, that's part of the learning curve, I think, of major leaguers. They learn to do that. They learn to adjust. The game slows down. They know what to expect. They understand how people might attack them when they've been on a hot streak, to try to break that up. And you got to have patience with the young guys. You just can't. You can't think that, oh my God, Alex Rodriguez just landed here from Memphis. No, it's we don't have those types of players in the system right now. So I think he'll be a pretty nice player for them to have, but I don't expect to see Mason win in an All-Star game in 2025-26 either.
Do you think he gets called up, or do you think they wait until next year to start his time?
I think they do bring him up this year. I think Paul DeYoung's no longer on the roster. So you have Tommy Edman, full-time shortstop right now. I think his backup might be, I don't know if it's Motter or Donovan, but I think it's highly likely that he's called up. I don't know, maybe in another week. Yeah, I think he will be.
Good, because I think that will ultimately end up ruling him out. I'm not as familiar with it, but I don't think that the Cardinals will get like some kind of extra pick or something if he wins Rookie of the Year next year, right? Because they've already called him up.
If he wins Rookie of the Year, they get a competitive balance pick.
No, but don't you have to? Isn't it in like their first call up? You have to start with them on the roster at the beginning of the year in order to get it.
Yeah, I think I
don't think he qualifies.
I think the magic date is 8/18. I wouldn't be surprised if on August 18th you hear about him coming up.
Of course.
Well, they're in the position now. They're not on top of the division. They're not a perennial contender. You're going to see a flip where they're going to have to start. Fuck. Well, you know what? If it's service time, we're riding this year out. Like, we're riding this year out. We're playing for nothing right now. So, are we really in the position like we were in the past that we can afford to waive a year of potential, control? They're probably in a much different position now to think about that stuff.
I bet they are.
Yep. And yes, and so what they've not done before, and guys like Jordan Hicks, that's a free agent already at like age 26, like they just never used to do that. And they're gonna have to start thinking about it a little bit different.
Yep.
So
Elliot,
stop turning your nose up to the other team's behaviors because you're right there with them right now.
Elliot, not nearly as much to talk about, but your reaction to the Cubs deadline.
Did not think that they were going to land Jeimer Candelario. I'm happy that they have. It lengthened out that batting order and made it just a little bit tougher for pitchers against the Cubs. I feel like it's supported the players around him because now they got to be a little bit more careful. We're starting to see starting pitchers get knocked out a little bit earlier than we had during the beginning of the season because it feels like these pitchers are being a little bit more safer with their pitches and trying to pitch around the edges instead of just throwing pitches in the middle of the plate and hoping that.
It's because they don't get to taking it bat off with Trey Mancini up.
Yeah, exactly.
I tell you, boy, if you needed an indication that the Cubs were going for it this year, it's not it's definitely not the trade for Candelario. That's the indicator. It's eating that contract.
Yes.
I mean, he still had what? I think it's $11 million left on his contract, and the Cubs said fine.
Well, he signed 2 years, $14 million, and they just ate.
They ate the whole thing.
So they had signed him through next year?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And they DFA'd him.
That's how bad it was, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, it was that bad. They just said, "Yep, nope, we'll pay it. Just go away."
Well, I think Jed's hand was forced to take away the ability for David Ross to keep putting him in the lineup every day because it was so bad.
And it wasn't. And the worst part about it wasn't just that he wasn't hitting. right? I mean, that's why they signed him, was because he was supposed to hit, and he was not hitting. I think his WRC plus was something in the 60s. What made it worse was he was not playable at first base. Like, Ron, any one of the three of us could have gone out and played first base. We wouldn't have played any worse than Trey Mancini was playing first base.
Huh.
It was that bad.
Well, we've experienced on our side too, where a GM eventually has to take the manager's toys away. We saw it with Tony La Russa and Chris Duncan, rest in peace. He passed away of brain cancer a few years ago. He's a good guy, but in 2009, Mo had to deal him to the Red Sox for, can't remember. Oh, it was Smoltz, I believe. Had to deal him away. So La Russa would running him out there because that's the pitching coach's son, right? Like, I don't know if that, you think Tony doesn't really do things like that, but he's a pretty loyal guy.
Yep.
And we saw it, and Mo had to take Alan Craig away from Mike Matheny for the same reason, kept running him out there all the time. So we've seen it a few times on our side too, where, all right, you know what, the manager's not going to stop writing his name in the lineup. I'm just going to take that option away. So we've seen it happen a few times too.
Elliot, were you expecting more, or was this enough to satisfy you?
No, I really wanted a lefty reliever. I think if Jed would have gone out and gotten another lefty reliever, that would have solidified the pen a little bit more, and we wouldn't be pitching guys like K.
Boy, that's when you know you're getting into baseball talk where women just walk away from you at the bar when you start talking about lefty relievers and backup catchers. That's pretty much should mark the end of our show. So I don't know, Pete. Yeah, I think that's it. Once we start talking about loogies and backup catchers, I think we've crossed that line where now we might as well be playing with a fidget spinner in the mall.
So the female erections have softened, and it's time to say that if you enjoyed this show, don't forget to leave a comment and subscribe. And if you want to help spread the word, please give us a 5-star review and tell your friends to do the same. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. And we also occasionally live stream on Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube. Be sure to check out the other Gateway City Sports Network podcasts, including the Derek King Sports Show, That's a Winner podcast, Talking Sports on the Bleachers, 2 for 3, and Yacker Jacks. You can find Elliot on X at
TOR_Elliot.
And you can find Ron at
TOR_Ron75 for now.
You can get in touch with us at the show at teamofrivalspodcast.com or on any social media channel at Team of Rivals Pod. Gents, a week from now, how far apart are the Cubs and the Cardinals in the standings?
Same.
Reckon so.
Well, Cardinals just won the series against the Rays. Not that the Rays are playing like they were earlier in the year, but they still won the series. But I think the Cardinals will probably finish. Okay, you want prediction? I love doing those. They're boring as shit.
They're 8.5 games apart right now.
No better than 7. They'll still be 7, 8 games apart. That's what I'm calling.
And in what place?
They might not be in last. I'm going to say 4th place.
Okay, they're a game and a half behind Pittsburgh. Right, currently.
We can catch them. We got them. We got Pittsburgh's number this year.
I mean, that's got to be the goal, right? You have to finish ahead of the Pirates.
I don't know how the draft pick thing technically works, but they're flipping now. They're manipulating service time. Maybe they are looking at things like, fuck this. Let's get a top 5 pick.
Elliot, what do you say this time next week? What's the separation?
Oh, next week? I thought you said the end of the year.
No. Next week. Next week. Next time we get on.
Oh, can I change my prediction?
Yes, you can.
Okay, 7 to 8 games.
Oh, it'll be 7 or 8 games separation.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, because what we're looking at right now, right? They got 3 games against the Royals.
Which, if you're paying attention, was the exact same prediction I had by the end of the year.
That's true.
Yeah.
2 games. Okay, so between now and next Thursday, 2 games against the Royals, 3 games against the A's, and they'll be wrapping up their first game against the Mets.
You're talking about the Cardinals.
Okay, so
I'm talking about the Cardinals. On the other end,
yeah.
Starting tomorrow, the Cubs have 3 against the Blue Jays and 2 against the White Sox.
And then they'll start theirs with the Kansas City Royals
on Friday. Yep.
On Friday.
Tough call.
So
what do you think, Elliot? What's the separation this time next week? We're currently looking at 8.5.
I think we will be right there at the same 8.5 because I think you know what? No, I'm going to go 10.
Just changed his mind quickly. All right.
I think the Cubs will be 10 games up on the Cardinals by that time.
All right, I'm going to go 9 games up and alone in second place. That's my call. The Reds will fall off.
That I would agree with.
The Reds will continue their slide, and they're gonna drop some games. They got the Pirates this weekend, and then they have the Guardians on Tuesday and Wednesday. So, but I still think that they're going to manage to continue to screw things up because their pitching is just not good.
No.
All right, Ron. Say goodnight.
All right, P. Thanks for taking us out. I know it's been the most uplifting and exciting show if you're a Cardinals fan, but we're looking forward to talking to you every week. We plan on doing the same thing next week, same time, same place. Love y'all so much. Bye-bye, everyone.